Hello, good people of the internet. My name is Andy and you're watching Geek Curio. And today I'm going to be interviewing Andrew, who is the DM of the D&D web series, The First Watch. Just to give a little bit of background on this, The First Watch has been running for just under a year now. They are coming up to their first year anniversary and season 1 of their show and their stream has just finished. In this video, I get to find out a little bit more about the show, the players involved in the show and their background in cinematography. Not only that, but Andrew was also very kind enough to help give me a few tips with my YouTube channel as well. But first of all, let's just sit back and relax and look at the first season trailer for The First Watch. The interview will then follow. Hi Andrew, thank you very much for joining me here on Geek Curio. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to chat today.
Oh, I'm really excited to chat to you. I've been watching your show, not all of it because I haven't had time to see all of it, but The First Watch. Wow.
It's long, yeah.
I mean, I really enjoyed it. I saw the opening intros that you had with yourself and Benji. I was watching your homebrew rules, which we'll go over at a later time as well. But well, first of all, how did you get into playing Dungeons and Dragons, and what inspired you to make this show about it, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up like a lot of kids, who now find themselves doing this. I grew up, reading classic fantasy and, being obsessed with Tolkien and Lewis and all of that type of stuff. And tried my hand at writing things through the years. I went and got a filmmaking degree and did some short films and then got into corporate filmmaking. And it was a couple years ago only that a friend of mine and I were talking and we were like, man, it'd be really fun to try D&D sometime. We've heard lots about it. It's starting to get popular again. Stranger Things had just come out and kind of revitalized people's interest in it. And so we tried a game and we got hooked immediately. And so we started a home campaign. And after about a year of doing that, we caught on to things like Critical Role, Relics and Rarities, Dimension 20, some of the more popular big D&D shows. And I think like a lot of people, you watch something that inspires you and you eventually go, gosh, I want to try that. Like, even though we're not them and maybe we can't do things the way they do it, like we want to try something. And what can we do that is us and that is unique and different? And so we were like, well, we're all filmmakers in one way or another. Let's try our hand at producing a little bit more of a polished, edited show. Still actual play, but with multiple cameras and, scored music and, B-roll cut-ins and things like that. So that combined with the opportunity to like finally take all the ideas that have been bouncing around in my head since I was a kid to create my own world, just like we kind of went on a tear and made this thing. And now we're getting ready for a season 2 and, spin-off things, and it's exciting.
Very exciting. I mean, I'm just going to go back to some of the points that you pointed out. The production value of it, I was totally blown away. I mean, I know when you contacted me on Twitter, you said, oh, we're a couple of filmmakers, and I was like,
yeah.
But when I actually started watching the videos, I was like, this is a lot more watchable, a lot more enjoyable than some of the more popular ones that are out where they don't have that production level. Yeah, I mean, I probably will be pestering you for the next few months on tips of sound, video collaging, and everything.
For sure, yeah.
Because I'm still just an amateur with what I do on my channel, but no, I absolutely love the production value, and
thank you.
It really shows
It's a very professional and well done show, and that's what I love about it. And I'm probably going to be tweeting the hell out of your of your retweets, so just do apologize.
Well, hey, we'll take it. We'll take it. No, I mean, it was something that we gave a lot of thought to. We didn't have a big budget. We luckily all work for a company that was gracious enough to let us borrow a lot of the camera gear and stuff, because we didn't own everything, ourselves. And we just kind of went all out. And I mean, it wasn't without challenges. I mean, like, we shoot it in my apartment living room. How do you make that not look bad? It took some time and some, we tried to light and, set design and everything like that. We had, no real crew to speak of. We set everything up, got it recording, and then sat down to play, which meant we had a couple instances where we lost audio and had to, go back and re-record, a battle scene or something like that, which was super frustrating in the moment, but also like a good learning experience. So like, we're really proud of how it turned out, but getting there was a heck of a journey and a lot of hard work for sure.
Because you probably used to, when you're actually doing I assume with film production, you've probably got someone there who's always making sure that the audio is coming through at all times. And while you guys are engaged in an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of fantasy role playing, it's very hard for anyone to put their hand up and say, we're not picking anything up here. So,
yeah, no, exactly. And we tried to take like frequent breaks, which are then edited around to like, check things and stuff. But that was one of the learning curves that we had, was like, how do we kind of be our own crew and cast at the same time? As we've done more and more of it, we've refined that process, and we've also gotten a little help here and there. But yeah, that was a big learning curve.
The story that I had with my learning curve was I got a lavalier or lapel mic, and it was recommended to me because it would vastly improve the sound quality of the videos I did. And the first time that I used it, I had it all set up, the mic and everything, and I recorded the video, not so much in one take. I've got a little Bluetooth thing which presses play and stop. And I did an entire normal video, which is about 30 to 40 minutes worth of footage. When I played it back, I had my tablet, which is what I was watching it on. I was playing it back, and not one of the videos seemed to have any of the sound recorded.
Oh no!
So I absolutely panicked, and so I put it back on the tripod. I quickly blasted through like a second round version of it, listened again, and it wasn't working at all. And then I completely forgot that I had the lavalier mic plugged into the audio jack, and the sound was recorded. It's just, obviously you can't hear it. So I had two videos identical. that was a learning experience for me. Thankfully, the second take was actually better, so I ended up with a lot more footage. But
that's how, it's funny, because in our very first episode, the audio that we lost was the big climactic troll battle. And so like the whole back half of the episode and the climax of kind of our inaugural story was gone. At least I think we lost one person's audio, but it was bad enough that like I was like, we can't substitute someone else's microphone for it. So we redid it. We sat down the next day, same clothes, did it. Hopefully you can't really tell a difference when you watch. But in order to keep it fresh and interesting, I changed some of the mechanics of how the battle started, and added some more elements. And I truly do believe that the version that we ended up going with and is in our episode is way more exciting and, way more fun and, more challenging than the original. So yeah, those second takes are, you're not always happy you have to do them, but they usually end up being better.
Yeah, I have to admit, it's like I wouldn't be happy doing second takes on everything that I do.
Right.
I know, as they say in the editing, it's like watch your stuff over and over again, but watching myself is probably the worst thing. It's my least favorite part of the job. I
feel like I have to disassociate and be like, look at me as if I'm an actor or something like that when I'm editing myself, because otherwise I'm way too self-conscious.
Yes,
and
I say that.
I would never get through it.
That's Geek Curio Andy, and real life Andy is here.
Yep. This is Andrew the DM, not Andrew the person.
So going back onto stuff like world building, I mean, with the show, you've created everything yourself from the world from the ground up, pretty much. I mean, most people will work with your very typical Faerun, Forgotten Realms or Eberron, but you decided to go I mean, and you said earlier, you said these ideas have been there since, your childhood days. How did it feel
In one way
to?
or another, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we actually started by thinking we were going to set it in Forgotten Realms, and just the more I looked into copyright, there's a lot with the open gaming license that is permitted in order to use the Dungeons and Dragons system for this, and it just started to get a little more murky when I started thinking about, could we set this in Neverwinter or Waterdeep or something like that, and I just got to the point where I was like, I want the stories and the characters we're making to be ours, and to be, unique. And so kind of really last minute, we pivoted and decided to make it an original world. So a lot of like the ideas I had for characters and stories still stuck. I just had to now come up with, a different, religious system and a different political system and, new names for all the places, which was again a lot of last minute work, but ended up being one of my most favorite parts about the whole process. And now as we look at season 2 and etc. and expanding that, like it's a lot of fun.
I mean, you're probably getting to a point now where your the history is the world is starting to write itself with the experience that the characters are bringing to it and everything. And I assume that this area which you thought was like this suddenly starts gaining history and giving you ideas to create for the future.
Well, and the players bring so much to it, and I want to create something that is a sandbox for them to play in, and I want to create something that's a structure, but that isn't determining their actions as much as it is letting them influence that larger world. And there's a really cool moment after every session where I get to then take everything that they did and think about, okay, did anything that they do like have a ripple effect that's gonna, eventually affect the capital city or, this area over here that they don't even know about? And that's the collaborative storytelling part of it. And that's, I love sitting down and writing all my notes out and having that freedom to brainstorm and create. But I think one of the reasons I didn't end up becoming a novelist is I never realized like how much I was gonna love this collaborative storytelling process. And doing it in this way through, a tabletop RPG is for me personally so much more fun, so much more fulfilling.
Yeah, because you're right. You're almost writing it as you play, and I say it's writing yourself. That's wonderful. So, can you tell me about your co-stars then, your players? Because you're working with quite a small party as well. But Benji and Melissa. Can you tell me about that?
So Melissa's my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Melissa's my wife, and she plays Sikia Thonthway, who is a Tortle cleric, former pacifist, now monster hunter. It's a really complex, interesting character. And then Benji is a coworker of mine, and we were playing in our home game as well. And he plays Hide of Beast, who is a Tabaxi cat person ranger, who also has a direwolf companion named Luna. And then later in the season, we get introduced to a third player who is played by Joe Frank, who's a friend of mine who's also our composer, who does our theme music and some of our other scoring. And he plays Gamorg, the half-orc fighter, and brings a really fun, interesting dynamic to the last 2 episodes of the season. So yeah, it's a colorful cast of characters. It's almost all anthropomorphic type characters. And I got to be honest, when everybody was first pitching things to me, I was like, this is weird. I don't know how this is all going to mash together. But I think it's a lot of fun, and hopefully in the season you see like it works out.
Yeah, I love the idea. So anthropomorphic, I always struggle that way. I did a review of a supplement with a friend of mine, Carlos, and he created a dark race called the Anasidos. That would really be exciting to try and fit in with your anthropomorphic.
Well, and the world itself is mostly halflings and gnomes. Like that's the predominant race of the kingdom of Alson. But within that, then of course there are those other types of races, and so it does create a few fun kind of fish out of water type moments as well to have these two different looking, feeling characters in amongst a world that's mostly halflings and whatnot.
So what sort of, are you able to give us a little peek behind the curtain as to what will be happening with season 2 at all? So, like I say, I would need to catch up with season 1, but have you got anything in plans or in store, or any sort of ideas that you got bubbling in your head at all?
Yeah. So, well, season one, so because we're naming things sort of like an anthology sort of thing. So, we called season one Realmshield, which is the Monster Hunters Guild that they're a part of. And so, kind of about their adventures protecting the land and the mystery that they get swept up into. Without giving anything away, season one ends on a cliffhanger. And so season two is going to pick up that story. And it's being called Wasteland. So there'll be a little bit of a different vibe to it. As you'll see if you watch the whole season, the characters are left in a very harrowing predicament at the end of season one. And so navigating the wasteland and figuring out what to do next is going to be a big part of season two. We've got more people who are going to be joining. Gamorg will stick around for a while. We've got some other guest stars lined up. So that little party of two is going to expand slowly over time. But I still want to keep at the heart of it all, assuming they survive, that core of those two characters, because that was such an important part of how we started things. The other fun thing that we've got coming up before even season two is a series of one-shots called Evocations. And these are actually going to be backstory episodes for our main characters. So we'll see Hyde and Luna's very first hunt together. We'll see young Sikia Thonthway with her family. We'll see Gamorg on an old mission. They'll be at lower levels, and it'll be a very different kind of one-shot experience, like an hour long each for those.
Really, really exciting what you've got going on there. I mean, last day, the production value. I didn't realize you had your own composer as well. I mean, I spent ages looking for theme tunes.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and we use some stock music, but my buddy Joe is a filmmaker and a composer, and I was like, winging a prayer, are you willing to write some music for us? And he was like, heck yeah. And so he wrote our theme, and then he, as time went on, he wrote more and more. So like by the time we get to the last couple episodes, it's almost all his original music. And it adds such a cool, just flavor. And like I can actually say, okay, this is what's happening in the episode. I need a track that feels like this. And you know how hard it is to find that right track online.
Yes,
so to get that is such a boon.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I am extremely envious, green with envy here now that you've
oh yeah, it's a luxury I don't take lightly for sure.
So with the world building, do you think you'll have are you starting to like take all these notes and starting to plan a big world, maybe possibly a book or something that you'll be releasing on DM's Guild at all? Or am I asking too much? Or
no, I mean the thoughts cross my mind. It would take years to put together enough stuff for a source book. But I've had a thought of like doing like a PDF guide to like all the NPCs and whatnot, just like fun things, more for my vanity than anything else. We did put out just a small PDF with some of the homebrewed rules on DM's Guild, because in order to have a dire wolf companion, which is a much larger, more potent creature than normally rangers can have in the normal rule set, we homebrewed a little new mechanic around that to make it balance a bit. So we put that out, and yeah, we'll see. As we do more and more different types of shows and miniseries, I do want to set them in other parts of the world. Like I want to set some stuff in the capital city and on the coasts and whatnot. So hopefully that'll also help just naturally flesh out that world building as we go.
So can you tell us a little bit about the homebrew rules that you've been doing? I know you do actually have your own video of that, and I'll probably put a link in the description of this video for our viewers.
Sure.
But if you could tell us some of the homebrew ones. I know you've done something that I quite like with spells, but if you'd like to go over the others, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I mean, we do a very common thing where taking a potion is a bonus action. Feeding a potion is still an action, but a lot of people do this, and I like the mechanic of just pop it, chug it, keep doing your thing. Probably the thing that we would get the most, flack about is how we handle spell casting, and this actually stems from just misreading rules when I was first starting playing D&D, and we started playing a certain way, and I just found that I liked it better.
I don't think you're alone.
But basically, the rules as stated say that if you cast a bonus action spell, then you can cast a cantrip with your action, or vice versa, that if you cast a spell, you can cast a cantrip with your bonus action. And we just take that cantrip, thing away and say, if the casting time is an action and a bonus action, you can do both those things on your turn. So you can cast Cure Wounds and Healing Word on the same turn. The reason I don't feel like it breaks the game is that depending on your build, like our cleric Sikia doesn't have a ton of bonus actions available to her, just with the spells that she's got. So you're not doing it every turn. And the other thing is that it's still using up spell slots, which are a finite resource. So I look at it as, yeah, you're getting to do maybe a little more on your turn, but you're also burning through your spell slots faster. So there's still an incentive to try a cantrip or to hold back and ration your things out. But yep, that's how we play. And then we've also got that hard to handle mechanic. So for the Direwolf Luna, if she rolls, and we rebalanced it a little bit after season 1, if she rolls a 1 or a 2 on a stealth check or an attack roll, it triggers a roll table where she may either run in a random direction or spook and bite the person nearest to her. Just kind of this idea that even though she's his companion, she's still a very wild beast. And if you get the PDF, which is free, there's a few more other fun things in there as well, as far as different kind of passive mechanics.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, in the UK, we love our dogs, absolutely love our dogs.
Yeah.
And there's loads of people who will always have their dogs off a lead when they're taking them for walks. I've got to admit, I do that with my dog when I'm just outside the house. I wouldn't do it where there's people. And you always hear stories of people saying, oh, yeah, my dog, I've had her for 8 years, and she'll never do this, she'll never do that. But at the end of the day, It's still a wild animal. Okay?
Exactly.
And, yeah, a dire wolf is a little bit of a step up from Jack Russell, I'm afraid. So,
just a little bit,
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I didn't want to say no to my player when Benji came to me and said I want a direwolf companion. And we talked also about just reskinning it and saying, do we just use normal wolf stats? And at the end of the day, I was like, to me, that's going to break the verisimilitude. That's going to, it is a bigger, more powerful beast. That's okay. Let's just introduce some risk to go along with the reward.
And the risk works out quite well. I mean, I've seen it in some other tabletop RPGs and some war games where you would have a weapon which has a normal shot, but you would have the overpowered shot, which could give you massive damage that you can give out.
Yeah.
However, if you roll that one, you're dead.
Breaks the gun or whatever. Yeah.
And it's quite interesting to see how many people are willing to go and take that risk. And it's hilarious when it goes wrong, especially if it doesn't happen to you. Sometimes when it does.
Right.
No, I love what you did with the rules there. I mean, the spell thing, I said you're not alone with reading that incorrectly, because number one, my group did. And I think there was even a video of you are playing the 5th edition incorrectly, and explained everything. And I was like, oh, well, that's no fun.
Yeah, and I think the rules as written make sense. But I also like the ability to bend those and make them what you want for your own game. And there's some stuff with my world as well that's going to come out in season 2 that I think will play into why magic is so easily accessible and all of that type of stuff. So hopefully there's going to be narrative reasons for it as well as we go along.
So in our conversations that you and I were talking about on Twitter, you said you've got some painted minis on your table for this. Now, I haven't had a chance to see this on YouTube yet. But you said, don't judge our mini painting, judge more our production value. And I was like,
right.
Your production value is absolutely brilliant, so I'm assuming your mini painting is going to be pretty top notch as well.
I don't know about that. I mean, I've started painting minis, when I started running my home game, and I enjoy it a ton. I definitely am nowhere near, the level of the people you see online, and I'm just learning about washes and things like that. So, but we did get custom minis made for the show via Hero Forge, and then painted them ourselves and added, the little tufts and stuff to try to create, some cool looking ones. The Height of Beast one with his bow, I added a tiny little string to actually give it a bowstring because the mini didn't have that. And I like it because we get to use them in our intro sequence. We did some filming with the minis to create that. And then we have them on the table, and we have a battle camera as part of our multiple camera setup. And it's fun. I mean, like, I think they look good enough. And we're getting better with that. But so yeah, it's another level of just when you sit down to create this and you start to list out all the different things you need and want to make the show look the way you want it. I was like, oh, I got to paint minis. Like, okay, do my very best. So they're serviceable.
I think I do worry about people when they say that when they look at something like what Gorilla with a Brush, who I interviewed a few months back, does, and think, oh, I've got to do everything like that. No, it's all about doing what works for you and works for yourself.
Yeah.
When I spoke to Alan, he will spend between 4 and 6 weeks on 1 mini, because that's how he enjoys it. Whereas me, the longest I've ever spent on 1 mini is 3 days.
Yeah.
And that was
I think we spent like 2 evenings doing hours, which felt like a long time based on just what I would normally do. Yeah, it is a whole different hobby and skill set that I enjoy dabbling in, and I don't pretend to be amazing at it, but it's kind of zen for me as well, and I like putting on like another RPG show in the background, and just spending the evening painting a mini. I don't know, it's never going to be my thing or my career or whatnot, but I certainly love the hobby for sure.
Geek Curio interviews are fantastic for listening to when painting.
I've heard that. Yeah.
So this is probably just going to be my final question of the evening. And what advice would you give to not just people wanting to get into role-playing games, but people wanting to perhaps start their own show on YouTube or Twitch as well?
Yeah.
But first of all, how would you encourage the beginner or the newbie to role play?
Yeah, I mean, speaking to just getting into the games first, I mean, the biggest thing is like don't worry about it being too awkward. Our first few sessions, our first few home games, as we were trying to learn the rules and learn how to do the role play and everything, were awkward as hell. But I look back on those and we have such fond memories of that first session, my friends and I, and we still talk about it and like the weird, wacky moments that happened during that first game. So like embrace the cringe, I guess, is one way to think about it. Know that if you don't like the way a mechanic is working, like A, you can either just change it, or B, there's a lot of different systems out there. D&D is not the only thing. There's Pathfinder, there's Vampire, there's, Starfinder if you want sci-fi. There's all sorts of different, and, dozens of wonderful indie creators out there as well. So go on, drive through RPG and find a system that sounds like something you would like. And yeah, just know that like once you can get past kind of the initial, like, okay, is this awkward or do I need to learn the rules? Like the world just opens up and it's so much fun. More specifically about, starting a show, identify, do an inventory first of your assets. Does this make sense to be a podcast? Does this make sense to be a live stream? How many people can you get involved, with a commitment? And like, that's okay to let that be, a box for you at first. We were very uniquely set up to be able to do the show we're doing because of our profession. Not everybody's going to have that, and vice versa. I've never really done live streaming, so the idea of doing a live stream Twitch show is incredibly intimidating to me. So it's just going to be different depending on who you are. But then, like, from there, like, the biggest thing is just believing in your story, believing in what you're doing, not doing it to try to gain an audience or try to, make it big or something. Like, we're doing this just because we love doing it. And if people want to follow along and watch us and join us, wow, that's amazing. But I'm going to keep doing it whether I've got 5 viewers or 5,000. So I think that attitude is what's going to give us our own personal success. And it's what I would say everybody should bring to their projects, when they're getting started.
Very wonderful. Yes, I totally agree with absolutely everything you say. So thank you ever so much for being on the show today with me, Andrew.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it.
And I'll be looking forward to watching the first watch. I need to catch up on season 1. Oh, by the way, it's your anniversary, isn't it? So since nearly a whole year since you first did that.
It's been nearly a year. Yeah,
Since next
we
week.
had a little bit of a hiatus with life and COVID in the middle of our season, but then we got the last couple episodes out, and yeah, we're coming up on 1 year, and lots more to go. I'm excited.
I'm very excited. I'm really looking forward to seeing the actual play and following the story and the whole world that you've created. But once again, thank you ever so much for being on Geek Curio, and I guess we will be talking much in the future, possibly on Twitter. And
I hope so.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you.
And yeah, that's great.